The Van's Worth by E.M. McCarthy. Narrated by John McCarthy. It was just a van. Nothing particularly beautiful or alluring about it. Its practical appeal was the only thing that enticed Neil to buy it. Plus, being a used vehicle, he saved a lot of money. Money he could spend on Evelynn. The afternoon was hot. The orange leaves of October couldn't hold back the sun's rays, and the oddity of autumn and heat made Neil laugh aloud. He rolled up his sleeves as the salesman brought him the keys. Rows of shining clean automobiles, Nissans, Hondas, and Fords, lined along the parking lot of the dealership. Freshly painted and beaming new cars alongside the minivan he purchased made Neil feel inadequate. Then he thought of Evelynn, and his thought quieted. The salesman said, "Thank you for your business. They'll be sending you the title in about a week or so." "Thank you," Neil said. "May I say you got yourself a real steal. I mean, you can't get a great deal on the new models. For the money, you got a lot of extras." How Neil hated the salesman's remarks, as if he was less important than those who bought new cars. "If you need anything at all, give me a ring." The salesman took out a business card from his top shirt pocket and handed it to Neil, who noticed that the salesman stared down at the old shoes he wore, the ones with a frayed shoestring he had hoped no one would notice. The salesman went on. "We filled it with gas. Oh, and another thing, we have a car wash that you can use whenever you like, free of charge. It's just one more way Sunset Motors loves its customers. You can keep your new van looking great. Well, your newly purchased van, I mean." Neil looked at the fat man and felt a queasy sort of feeling like he wanted to eliminate him. But then he stared at the bumper of his van and thought of Evelynn, and his thoughts quieted. "Thank you," Neil said. He clicked the keypad and the van unlocked. Then he got into the driver's side. He started the van, which had no sound at all, so quiet was its engine. Neil pulled out of the parking lot and in his rearview mirror saw the salesman wander over to another customer. If he hadn't Evelynn waiting for him, he would have spoken more forcefully, but he needed to get out of the dealership before dark. The drive through the countryside may have delighted his senses if he didn't have the burning desire to finish his business. Neil stopped at the little house his mother owned, and he left the van running as he picked up the mail from the box. A faint and familiar train whistle echoed across the valley, giving Neil a startle. His gaze shifted to the lone neighbor's house a good acre away. The television flickered the evening's news, flashing killings across the screen, as if every citizen should be aware of what goes on in the hidden places they're too scared to enter. He hurried back to the van, tossing the coupon book and electric bill on the passenger seat, as he closed the door of the driver's side. A slight, sweaty odor filled him with repugnant air. He wished to shower, but it would have to wait. He must finish that which was pressing. He drove the van into the side entrance garage, and by now the darkness had switched on in the country like a thick veil over a window. Neil recalled the tale his mother told of the boogeyman. How cruel it was to fill a child with tales that led to consternation. The boogeyman looked just like you or me, she'd say, only he bit harder and liked the taste of blood. What sick little tales he endured. If Evelynn hadn't needed him, he would have told his mother that she was in fact a bad woman. Then he took out his toolbox, pickaxe, and shovel, and carried them one by one to the van. He opened the trunk, pushed down the seats to make more room, and placed each item there carefully, leaving room for one more. He went to the freezer in the corner of the garage and took out a large, heavy garbage bag. He couldn't lift it, but dragged it across the floor to the trunk. He hoisted it up and into the space he had left. Then he closed the trunk nice and snug. Neil knew the van was just what he needed to help Evelynn. He got back inside of the driver's side and backed out of the long and winding driveway. He turned down the lane and continued for a half a mile, to the edge of his mother's property line. Then he turned off his headlights and drove down a little further, along the long field that separated his mother's house from the neighbor's. He timed it, a mile exactly, and turned inward, towards the sycamore tree his mother was so fond of, and stopped. He got out of the van and stepped off 10 feet. Then he took a rock laying on the ground and marked it. Hastily he returned to the van and opened the trunk, picking out the pickaxe and shovel. He walked over to his spot and dug a large hole. The night sounds of distrusting animals warning the others of danger followed each cut he made into the earth. He stopped to rest, almost finished with the hole. His clothes smelled of earth and sweat. He thought that Evelynn didn't deserve what gift he gave her, but he had to finish it anyway. He dug again. As he mentally measured, he knew he was done. He returned to the van and pulled the garbage bag to the hole. The sound of dumping the bag, such a loud thud, made his heart quicken. He cried tears of regret, and then he wiped them. Not tears, just Evelynn is what he needed. He finished and felt relief. Then he loaded the tools back into the van. Neil drove the few miles back without lights, and then he turned them on when he reached the highway. He continued to drive until he came into the town and stopped by a house with a mailbox that read, 309 Main, Jennings' house. He parked the van in the driveway and went up to the front door, wiped his feet on the mat, and rang the bell. Evelynn would be proud, he thought. He was a man. No one man would have taken the browbeating day after day, week after week, even in exchange for a place to live. He waited as he heard the dog bark. She couldn't be asleep yet. What time was it anyway? It can't be that late, but all her lights were off. She told him any time he needed her to call. He did one better by coming over. He saw a light turn on and saw the faint glow of a lamp through the window curtain. Eagerly he thought of kissing her on the lips. Did he dare it? Hadn't she told him that he needed physical intimacy, that he deserved it? He was the master of his fate, she told him. She even gave him those pills, those blue ones that helped him so much. He felt so much better since he took them, since Evelynn came into his life. He wanted so much to tell her of his love for her, to let her know his mother would never again come between him and a woman. "Who is it?" Evelynn asked through the door. "It's me, Neil." "Neil? Neil Sims?" She opened the door. "Yes. I wanted to tell you something." Evelynn rubbed her head. "Couldn't this wait?" "You made me a new man." "I'm glad you think so. Why don't you call the office in the morning and we'll set up an appointment to discuss it?" "But I thought you'd want to know." "I do. I want to know all about it. Tomorrow. It's late. Good night, Neil." Evelynn shut the door, and he noticed the light switched off. Neil was confused, and his sweating began again. How dare she brush him aside, like the car salesman or his mother? She had been the one who told him to stand up for himself. She wasn't who he imagined. Instead of being his savior and soon-to-be lover, she was unworthy of him. She was the boogeyman, like his mother. She was worse than his mother. Neil went back to the van and opened the trunk. He didn't care anymore. What did he have left anyway? Just a used van that had gotten mud on its underside from all that driving down darkened fields. It was Evelynn's fault. She told him to stand up to his mother. Now she was laughing at him. Or worse, looking down at him. Him and his old used van with mud all over the underside. Neil picked up the pickaxe.
The end.